Morgan Neves wants to buy a home near where she grew up in Wollongong, but might not be able to afford it.
I have a young son, he's in school, all our family's here, so it would mean that we would lose that network of people.
Across the country, house prices have risen more than 20% in just a year.
A lot of the time the investors will come in and they'll, outbid you by, $40,000, $50,000.
Now, the Australian Prudential Regulatory Authority, APRA, has stepped in to try and slow soaring prices. The banking regulator has announced tougher tests for home loans. On a mortgage rate of 2%, banks must check whether new borrowers can afford repayments at 4.5%. That's a buffer of 2.5%. From November, the buffer rises to 3%, meaning banks will test whether borrowers can afford an interest rate of 5%.
For those borrowers that want to borrow the maximum amount, they won't be able to borrow as much as they were able to previously. APRA estimates it's about 5% less.
The government blames the hot market on a lack of available homes to buy.
Because the housing market is not allowed to expand supply so that people can buy the homes that they can now afford, APRA is having to step in and actually call the market off.
If you think it's tough here, look over the ditch.
There are now more real estate agents in New Zealand than there are homes for sale.
In 1 year, the value of Kiwi homes has rocketed almost 30%. The government has dumped its version of negative gearing and already put in loan restrictions similar to ours. Economist Craig Rennie says housing affordability rivals COVID as New Zealand's biggest challenge.
It causes people to delay having families because they can't afford to move to a larger home or buy their own home or give themselves a sense of security.
A key factor is cheap money on both sides of the Tasman.
Let's not underestimate the impact that a low interest rate market has on investment opportunity.
New Zealand's Reserve Bank has lifted its key cash rate from a record low of 0.25% to 0.5%, its first rise since 2014.
I'll be okay, but it's others really that I'm concerned about.
It just makes it harder for younger people nowadays as well, if they're trying to get into the housing market and buy houses. It just makes things more difficult.
Central banks in South Korea and Norway have raised rates as well, but the Reserve Bank of Australia insists it won't move until 2024. At current exchange rates, it's cheaper to buy a medium-price house in London than it is in Melbourne or Sydney. The nation's biggest lender, Commonwealth Bank, thinks the regulator's new test will slow growth to 7% next year. While the regulator has taken a first step to cool house prices, it will become harder for some to find a home.